Hey guys, it's Bethany here with Ingrained Nutrition Therapy. I have my wireless mic here with me. And I just wanted to, first of all, say happy Easter weekend. And I know this is a much different time for all of you than we usually expect. It's different for my family. Our traditions are disrupted. But the main part of Easter being celebrating joy and hope that comes out of darkness and despair is what means the most to me. And so, because of Christ and his work in my life is why I can have peace in the midst of a very anxious and stressful situation. Doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean I have all the answers, but it does mean that I can know deep down that I know who is in control and that he has proved that he is stronger than death. And he is victorious. And so my family and I celebrate the risen Christ this weekend. And just part of that is our coming together as a family around the table. One of the things that we usually do is a bigger Easter dinner, but I don't have Easter supplies right now. We usually get together with extended family and my kids are sad, but I really did not want to go to the grocery store this weekend at all to hit up stores for things because I knew it was going to be a little bit more crowded. And so I'm just going to make Easter brunch with what we have on hand. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I'm making. And I have a free Easter mini brunch cookbook that you can download, so I'll show that to you. I'll put a link in the comments below in this video. So I've already made some, and I have a new stand, and so I'm going to kind of like show you what I did, even though I'm still learning this technology. So I've gone ahead and made a blueberry crumble, or maybe called blueberry crisp, in my cookbook. And if you don't have, I use frozen blueberries, but if you don't have that on hand, you can use like frozen cherries, frozen mixed berries, frozen peaches. If you have some like apples in your refrigerator or just like a conglomeration of things. For the recipe, it calls for 4 cups of fruit, so you can use whatever you want to, which is super nice because it's very versatile. The recipe calls for using almond flour. You can use oat flour in there. Like if you have oatmeal at your house, you can put some oats in the blender and blend it up and then measure that out for oat flour. And I actually use some of this gluten-free flour blend. Right now we're having to do some gluten-free things for my family. I happen to have this that I had bought for a quick dessert or bread. And so this is something by Pillsbury that has some xanthan gum. It has rice flour, potato starch, pea fiber, tapioca starch, and xanthan gum. But it doesn't have any enrichment in there, which is what I like. A lot of the flours out there are fortified with folic acid. And we have some known genetic mutations in my family. We don't do well with fortified folic acid, and so I want to make sure we use that. So anyway, I use the gluten-free flour blend, and the recipe calls for coconut oil, but I use avocado oil. I bought tons of this right as quarantine started, and I use avocado oil instead of olive oil in my family. I will tell you, I just get really depressed when I have olives, and I love olives. So anyway, so that's part of what we're doing for our brunch. And then I have some sweet potatoes in my Instant Pot that I'm going to be using to make like a sweet potato casserole with a streusel topping on that. So those are already cooking. And then here in my jar, I have some raw honey poppy seed vinaigrette that I made. I had all the ingredients on hand. I buy honey by the gallon jars from Azure Standard, and so I always have plenty of that. And this is something I made last year in springtime when we had some lettuce in the refrigerator. That's a living lettuce, and so we'll use that up. Probably have people coming in to join me now, so I'm going to wrap up in a second. The last thing I'm going to be doing is making a frittata, which is just basically eggs that are cooked in a big skillet. So this is my cast iron skillet that I have over here. It's a pretty big one, and I may double that frittata recipe that I have in the Easter brunch cookbook so that I can have extra. I have plenty of eggs, but the recipe calls for kale, and I don't have any fresh kale, but I'm going to use this chopped kale that I had in the freezer. And then it calls for red pepper, so it's a kale and red pepper frittata. And I don't have any red. I do happen to have some like leftover frozen peppers, so I'm going to use those. I think I may go ahead and saute those a little bit ahead of time before I put it in the frittata, because it's kind of like a block of ice right now. So you know how vegetables sit in the freezer for a few months sometimes. So I'm going to saute those, and I have like these random little bitty peppers that we had left over that I need to use up too. So it's one of those like pulling together the fragments to make a meal kind of days. But I think it'll still come up as something nice, and we'll still be able to enjoy it together as a family. So we'll have 4 things. I'll have the blueberry crumbles, kind of a dessert. I'll have the frittata. I'll have the sweet potato kind of souffle casserole, and then we'll have the salad with the poppy seed vinaigrette. I'll probably put some toasted nuts on there, maybe some walnuts or almonds. I may make a variety because different people in my family can have different nuts. So just have different things they can sprinkle on top, and maybe some chopped apples on there because I know we have apples. So I'd love to hear how you're being creative to make your Easter meal for your family, some things that you usually do and maybe what you're doing instead. But it's certainly not a day that we need to skip celebrating, even if it's something simple. And another thing you can do is if you have anything fresh and beautiful blooming in your yard, pick some of that, bring it inside, and make your table pretty. Use what you have. And we're going to be picking some of our irises that are growing. So I'll arrange those in a vase and we'll just enjoy time together. So if you need anything, you have questions about the recipe book, send me a message. I'm going to include it in the link below, and I hope you have a wonderful and joyful Easter weekend. Here's to wholesome.